Hi dear students, welcome back to the online classes prepared and presented by Mr. Abdul Manaf, Assistant Professor, English Department. This class is meant for MA English Literature students under Calicut University. Today, let's discuss third and fourth acts of Caesar and Cleopatra. Act 3. A Roman sentinel stationed on the quay in front of the palace. Act 3. A Roman sentinel stationed on the quay in front of the palace looks intently across the eastern harbor to the west for activity at the Pharaoh's lighthouse. Now captured and occupied by Caesar, he is watching for signs of an impending counterattack by Egyptian forces arriving via ship and by way of the Heptastadion, a stone causeway spanning the 5 miles of open water between the mainland and Pharaoh's Island. The sentinels' vigil is interrupted by Tata Tita. We know well who is Tata Tita, Cleopatra's nurse, and Apollodorus, the Sicilian, a patrician, a major of the arts, accompanied by a retinue of porters carrying a bale of carpets from which Cleopatra is to select a gift appropriate for Caesar. Cleopatra emerges from the palace, shows little interest in the carpets, and expresses a desire to visit Caesar at the lighthouse. The sentinel tells her she is a prisoner and orders her back inside the palace. Cleopatra is enraged, and Apollodorus, as her champion, engages in swordplay with the sentinel. A contrition intervenes and avers Cleopatra will not be allowed outside the palace until Caesar gives the order. She is sent back to the palace, where she may select a carpet for delivery to Caesar. Apollodorus, who is not a prisoner, will deliver it since he is free to travel in areas behind the Roman lines. He hires a small boat with a single boatman for the purpose. The porters leave the palace bearing a rolled carpet. They complain about its weight, but only Tata Tita, suffering paroxysms of anxiety, knows that Cleopatra is hidden in the bundle. The sentinel, however, altered by Tata Tita's distress, becomes suspicious and attempts unsuccessfully to recall the boat after it departs. Meanwhile, Rufio, eating dates and resting after the day's battle, hears Caesar speaking somberly of his personal misgivings and predicting they will lose the battle because age has rendered him inept. Rufio diagnoses Caesar's woes as signs of hunger and gives him dates to eat. Caesar's outlook brightens as he eats them. He is himself again when Britannicus exultantly approaches bearing a heavy bag containing incriminating letters that have passed between Pompey's associates and their army, now occupying Egypt. Caesar scorns to read them, deeming it better to convert his enemies to friends than to waste his time with prosecutions. He casts the bag into the sea as Cleopatra's boat arrives. The falling bag breaks its prow and it quickly sinks, barely allowing time for Apollodorus to drag the carpet and its queenly contents safe ashore. You know what is the queenly content in it? Caesar unrolls the carpet and discovers Cleopatra, who is distressed because of the rigors of her journey, and even more so when she finds Caesar too preoccupied with military matters to accord her much attention. Matters worsen when Britannicus, who has been observing the movement of the Egyptian army, reports that the enemy now controls the causeway and is also approaching rapidly across the island, swimming to a Roman ship in the eastern harbor becomes the sole possibility for escape. Apollodorus dives in readily and Caesar follows. After privately instructing Rufio and Britannicus to toss Cleopatra into the water so she can hang on while he swims to safety. They do so with great relish. She screamingly, mightily, then Rufio takes the plunge. Britannicus cannot swim, so he is instructed to defend himself as well as possible until a rescue can be arranged. A friendly craft soon rescues all the swimmers. Act 4. Cleopatra besieged in the palace in Alexandria. 6 months elapse with Romans and Cleopatra besieged in the palace in Alexandria. Cleopatra and Pothinus, who is a prisoner of war, discuss what will happen when Caesar eventually leaves and disagree over whether Cleopatra or Ptolemy should rule. They part, Cleopatra to be hostess at a feast prepared for Caesar and his lieutenants, and Pothinus to tell Caesar that Cleopatra is a traitress who is only using Caesar to help her gain the Egyptian throne. Caesar considers that a natural motive and is not offended. But Cleopatra is enraged at Pothinus' allegation and secretly orders her nurse, Tata Tita, to kill him. At the feast, the mood is considerably restrained by Caesar's ascetic preference. What was Caesar's ascetic preference for? It's for simple fare and barely water versus exotic food and wines. However, conversations grow lively when world-weary Caesar suggested to Cleopatra they both live political life, search out of the Nile source and a city there. Cleopatra enthusiastically agrees and to name the city seeks help from the god of the Nile. Who is her favorite god? The festivities are interrupted by a scream, followed by a thud. Pothinus has been murdered and his body thrown from the roof down to the beach. The besieging Egyptians, both army and civilian, are enraged by the killing of Pothinus, who was popular hero, and they begin to storm the palace. Cleopatra claims responsibility for the slaying, and Caesar reproaches her for taking short-sighted vengeance, pointing out that his clemency towards Pothinus and the other prisoners has kept the enemy at bay. Doom seems inevitable, but then they learn that reinforcements commanded by Mithridates of Pergamos have engaged the Egyptian army. With the threat diminished, Caesar draws up a battle plan and leaves to speak to the troops. Meanwhile, Rufio realizes Tata was Pothinus' killer. So he kills her in turn. Cleopatra, left alone and utterly forlorn, discovers the bloodied body concealed behind a curtain. An epilogue. There is an epilogue in Act 5. Caesar prepares to leave for Rome during great pomp and ceremony. His forces have swept Ptolemy's armies into the Nile, and Ptolemy himself was drowned when his barge sank. Caesar appoints Rufio governor of the province and considers freedom for Britannicus, who declines the offer to favor of remaining Caesar's servant. A conversation ensues that foreshadows Caesar's eventual assassination. As the gangplank is being extended from the quay to Caesar's ship, Cleopatra, dressed in mourning for her nurse, arrives. She accuses Rufio of murdering Tata. Rufio admits the slaying, but says it was not for the sake of punishment, revenge, or justice. He killed her without malice because she was a potential menace. Caesar approves the execution because it was not influenced by spurious moralism. Cleopatra remains unforgiving until Caesar renews his promise to send Mark Antony to Egypt. That renders her ecstatic as the ship starts moving out to sea. Okay, thank you for watching today's video. Let's meet with new video, new attempt.